Recording button.
Guess we're just waiting for me.
Yeah, we're just waiting for you. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is our Project Advisory Committee meeting number 2 for the Boardman Comprehensive Plan and Development Code update. And with that, I'm just going to say welcome and basically turn it over to the consultant team. We probably want to do real quick introductions just so that everybody in the room knows everybody. I think we're mostly there, but this is only meeting 2. So
So we lost a couple people.
yeah. Well, I need to be firmer in my next invite. You shall come to this meeting. Not please come to this meeting. You shall come. So anyway, Carla McLean, planning official here at Boardman.
Leon Gibb.
Okay.
Nobody. I'm here because I'm not sure why I'm here.
You're here because your son-in-law recruited you for this.
Yeah, that.
There's that. Vince?
So I'm Vince Guerrero with Morrow County and I'm an Irrigan, not governor.
Okay.
Riley Cambero, planner here for the city of Boardman.
Mike Lee's City Boardman engineer.
Stephanie Case, principal planner for the city of Boardman.
Hi, it's up to you guys over there on the screen. I'll let you 3 go and do quick introductions.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. My name is Angelica Martinez. I'm a member of Cascadia Partners, the consultant team leading these efforts. And I am the project manager. I'm a senior associate with Cascadia. And today with me are my colleagues, Sashi Arakawa and Alison Platt. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Sachi Arakawa. I'm a partner at Cascadia Partner, and I'm the PIC for this project. Thanks for having us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allie or Allison Platt. I'm also a senior associate with Cascadia Partners and happy to be here supporting this project.
Great.
All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, it was full screen a moment ago and now it's not. So
What about now?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, welcome to this second meeting for the Project Advisory Committee for the update of the comprehensive plan. And so for today, this is the agenda we have for today. So we're going to start doing a brief recap on what the comprehensive plan process is about. And then we will talk about key findings from our existing conditions research. Then we will have a 5-minute break. And when we come back, we will discuss key takeaways from the community listening session we held on May 3rd. And then we will work as a group in the development of a draft vision statement for the Boardman Comprehensive Plan. And by the end of the meeting, we will briefly discuss next steps for the project. And that's what we have for today. Any questions on this?
No.
All right. Okay. Let's start with the recap of the COMPLAN process. So as we discussed last time, Boardman is growing, and the future growth must be safe, well-planned, and sustainable. So for this reason, the city is updating its comprehensive plan. In summary, a comprehensive plan is a long-term guide that helps a community decide how to grow and how to use the land and how to plan for the future. So how does a comp plan help cities to decide how to grow? So first, the comprehensive plan helps by setting goals. So this document set goals and policies. And then second, the comprehensive plan helps identify rules for where things can build, and these rules are outlined in the development code. And third, the comp plan helps decide how things should be built. And as a result, we have standards and specifications for constructions, for new constructions, or the constructions for the future. So why to update a comp plan? In summary, because cities need to respond to changing community priorities and conditions. And the last time Boardman completed a major update to the comp plan was in 2003. And since then, the community has been changing a lot. It has grown. So it's time to plan for these for current and future changes. So the update of this comp plan consists of 4 phases. We are wrapping up phase 1, in which we conducted research and 1 community listening session to learn about the Boardman community. And so this meeting represents the end of phase 1. So in the summer, we are going to start phase 2. And so basically the findings and input from from phase 1 will inform phase 2. And in phase 2, we are going to propose some ideas for areas where Boardman could grow, and also ideas, or we call it concepts, code concepts, to address land use problems and future challenges, land use challenges. So once we wrap up the project in the,
Thank you.
is there a question?
No, we just have another PAC member that arrived. Kathy Street's
Okay.
here. And she brought coffee and didn't bring it for all of us.
Well, you know, I was trying to get here on time.
Great. So once we complete all this process in the spring of 2026, the comprehensive plan will be adopted, and the regulations called zoning standards will be created. So that's the final purpose of all this process. Any questions on that? Ali, you have a
That was an accident. Sorry.
any question on the comp plan process? It was super quick, so. Okay. Yeah, great. All right, let's move on to key findings on existing conditions research. So at the beginning of the process, we conducted research on existing conditions in Boardman related to people, development, services, and nature. But we know that sometimes data is not accurate, and we cannot entirely rely on that. So we want to confirm with community members that the information we gathered is correct. So this is why we are presenting this to this group today. So in this research, we focused on 4 themes. Again, people, development, services, and nature. And these are key findings for each theme. So for people, we found that Boardman has grown a lot between 2010 and 2024. So it went from roughly 3,000 people to almost 6,000 people in a period of 14 years. And we've also found that Hispanic population remains a majority in Boardman, and also Black population grew 2%, but it's significant since 2010. For development, we focus on housing, jobs, and commuting. And basically, we found that the cost of living has increased a lot, which is not a surprise for anyone. And the cost of rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in Boardman is about $1,500, meaning that a household needs to earn at least $59,000 to afford rent without problems. So based on this research, this is a problem in Boardman because nearly 44% of the residents, according to our data, make less than $50,000 a year. So this means that more than 1/3 of the population struggles to find housing, a place that they can afford. In terms of services, 64% of residents in Boardman live within a 10-minute walk of a park, and only 20% residents live within a 10-minute walk of a retail destination. So we'll have to drive long distances for retail services. In terms of nature, we found that Boardman is known for its beautiful scenery and view of the Columbia River, and also known for having few rainy days during the year. So it's only 8.9 inches annually. And also we found that some of the climate risks that Boardman face currently are some of these risks include drought, flooding, extreme ice, and heat, which affect the agricultural sector in particular. And why is this sector affected? Because this risk can affect crop yields and the movement of goods along 84 and other important roads. So, okay, let's take a moment to have a brief discussion on these findings. So, do these findings resonate with you? Do you have any additional comments? And you can either speak up, or you can also, if you prefer to write down any comments, you can scan this QR code, and it will leave you to a tool called Mentimeter, in which you can enter any comments or follow-up questions on this.
What are we supposed to do?
No, you don't have to,
Oh.
but you can if you want.
So I have a hard time believing that 68% of the residents live within 10 minutes walking of a park.
Well, there's Tuscany Park, there's 2 parks in River Ridge. There's City Park here, City Hall Park.
Right.
There's Zuzu Park.
I know all the parks, but for me to walk 10 minutes, I can't get to a park, I don't think. So I wonder if that's really driving instead of walking. And I guess I didn't think of River Ridge as parks, they're just empty lots now.
Yes, I mean, they are identified as
Mhm.
parks, and we're working with Parks Master Plan to
Okay.
populate them. But on the north side, the current inventory of parks would include the items along the Front Street.
Right, I'm
And
on
then
the south side over
Here,
here.
over here.
Yeah, southwest, so I can see that. Okay, the River Ridge parks. And then that one,
There's one in Tuscany. There's a park in Tuscany.
the one on the naming thing that we had to call you guys to see what it was, is actually in our neighborhood, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Hillview one.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that.
Right, and it's not a park yet. No, and it's not on the inventory from a
Okay.
accessibility.
Okay, thanks.
But
Thanks for that clarification.
But it will be. Well, I mean, at some point in time, it will be developed in. And then there'll be the Heritage Trail on the park blocks that run under the BPA lines, so. Yeah, over
Yeah,
time,
okay,
over time.
thanks.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like maybe some of the parks that are considered within a walking distance of 68% of the population maybe don't have as many of the amenities as folks would like. So even if they're technically parks, they aren't providing the things that people would like for parks to provide. So I think
Right.
that's worth noting. Thanks
Yeah.
for that comment.
Yep. I have a question for the PAC members in the group. You know, one of the things we didn't do at the front end of this is actually send you guys our current comprehensive plan. I don't know that it would necessarily be fully beneficial for you to read it or have read it to participate in this process. But as this conversation was going, the note I made to myself was, should we be sending the current comprehensive plan to the PAC? And I think I am gonna follow up this meeting and send all of you the link to it, to the electronic version. And it's there in all of its horrible glory in 12 chapters, 14 chapters. And I say horrible glory, it's not a badly written comprehensive plan, it's really not. It has good bones, but it is 22, 23 years old. And honestly, the update in 2003 was probably not a comprehensive update at that point in time. And that takes you back to the comprehensive plan. There's a 72 version and an 80 something version, if I remember right, or maybe it's 72 and 79, I'm not sure. But it does what most comprehensive plans do. It talks about the 14 statewide planning goals. There'll be a test on this later, okay, PAC members. So, the first goal is community involvement, followed by the planning goal, which is really the how-to goal. And for most citizen planners, it was like, don't worry about it. That's what we deal with. And the goal 3 is agricultural, goal 4 is forest lands. And those are really rural goals. So you'll see the counties deal with ag lands and forest lands. And then goal 5 is natural resources. 6 is air, land, and water quality. 7 is natural hazards. 8 is recreation. 9 is our economic development goal. 10 is our housing goal. And the housing goal across the state is getting a whole lot of attention these days. 11 is public services, and that's not just the city's delivery of water and wastewater, and to some degree streets, and you'll see why I say some degree streets, but it also deals with that other broad variety of public services. From, we have a police department, we have a fire department, we have EMS providers, we have a library, we have healthcare facilities. So public services is much broader than just the public services that the city delivers. And then goal 12 is a transportation goal, which is mostly informed by our transportation system plan, which is also currently being updated. Goal 13 is what I call the throwaway goal, because it's the energy goal. And when the goal was envisioned in the 1970s, we were in the middle of an energy crisis. So it's an energy conservation goal, which really doesn't do us any real positive good here in Eastern Oregon when we're trying to figure out how to manage the energy generation and transmission that has just become the focus of everything we do for the last almost 20 years. And then the last goal that we deal with is 14, which is the urbanization goal. And it basically kind of defines how we will go. Now there's 5 more planning goals. There are 4 coastal goals that the folks who live along the Pacific Ocean deal with. And then there's a Willamette Greenway goal, and clearly we're not in the Willamette Valley, so we don't address those 5 goals, but everybody addresses the 14 I went through initially. So I think I've decided, I'm just talking my way into it. I'm gonna go ahead and send everybody the link to the current comprehensive plan, and maybe provide a little bit of, take a look. You don't have to read it all, but maybe a kind of understanding what it is currently doing will help you better understand kind of where the consultant team is going. Many comprehensive plans are organized around the 14 goals. So most comprehensive plans have, again, if you're on the coast, you'll have 18 chapters. If you're in the Willamette Valley and are subject to the Willamette Greenway goal, you'll have 15 chapters. There are actually a couple of counties who, I think Douglas is one. There are a couple of counties that actually span that distance between the Willamette and the coast, and they actually have to deal with all 19 goals.
For sure.
Yeah, there's only just a couple of counties that actually do that. The themes that we just went through, the people, the development, the services, and the nature, and I think they're gonna get into this eventually, is they're kind of looking at completely reevaluating how we've laid out our comprehensive plan. And rather than having 14 chapters where each chapter addresses one of those goals, they're gonna kind of throw it all into the pot and mix it up and pull it out into these concept areas of people, development, services, and nature, and align the goals that are people-oriented goals with that overarching kind of chapter. And then again, development, and then services, and then nature. So for me, it's kind of a different way of thinking, but it's a really intriguing way of thinking. And if I need to shut up, Angie, you just need to tell me to be quiet, because you're gonna cover this in a few minutes.
You're fine.
Fine.
You're fine, fine, be quiet. Anyway, but I'll send it out. I'll send the link, and you know, glad to have conversations. If you need to get into it and have questions, we can certainly talk about, you know, kind of where we are with the current comprehensive plan. But just understand, it's 23 years old, but it's really older than that.
So don't judge you, is that what you're saying?
I certainly didn't write it.
No.
So I have a question. Does the state require you to do a new comprehensive plan every 20 years, or is it?
So when originally envisioned, and I'll answer, and then maybe Sachi wants to throw into this, or well, any of the ladies up there. Initially, when you look at the statute and kind of the rules that kind of guide how communities, whether it be a county or a city, is supposed to manage their comprehensive plan. Every comprehensive plan says that we're gonna evaluate it at least annually or biannually, often in kind of sync with the legislative session, because they like to make new laws, and we need to be updating not only our comprehensive plan, but our development code and consistent with that. The reality is that communities just don't have the capacity. I mean, on the county side, which I know you're much more in tune with, when you look around the state, out of 36 counties, there's more than a handful that have a planner. And some of those planners are not even full-time. So the capacity to maintain your planning documents gets difficult. Even in a planning department like at Morrow County, with a fairly robust staff, and that staff has grown over the past 15 years. We didn't get to code maintenance or to comprehensive plan maintenance. I mean, in my time there, we did some things around the edges. I know Tamara picked up the mantle on the housing and actually started and completed a project that I had envisioned, because we've done the housing strategies report, but we just didn't get to it. There still is a program called periodic review, which the state funds. And they've all but exempted really the only ones that are still required. I could even be wrong on this. I think only the largest communities are now required to go through periodic review. It's still recommended and available, but the commentary around periodic review for a long time was about, people called it painful review or perpetual review, or, I mean, we kind of took the periodic out and replaced it with other P words, because that's what you felt like. If you moved into it, whether you were required or voluntarily, it just felt like you couldn't get out of it. Because it's like, well, we need to fix this, but pretty soon you're not fixing just that. It leads to this and that and the rest of it. So there's always been this vision that there will be a mechanism for communities to keep their plan up to date. I mean, I think reasonably a small community that's not experiencing much development, a comprehensive plan might last 15 or 20 years. But I think Stephanie and I were talking about this morning. Once we're doing all of this work right now, and in another year and a half, pretty much every planning document we have will be current and up to date. Well, what does that mean about when we do this again? And I think if we continue to grow the way we are, we're gonna need to do another housing needs analysis probably within 5 years. We might have to do another economic opportunities analysis within a comparable time frame. We might need to update the TSP, or at least the project portion of the TSP, within 5 to 7 years. The Parks Master Plan has a life of 10 years, but if we get really focused on doing parks enhancement projects, we could blow through that 10 years of projects, maybe in less than 10 years, which means all of those documents need to then be on some kind of renewal or update cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sachi, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on, Carla, that for Boardman in particular, having regularly updated long range, or in this case, maybe medium and even short range planning documents that would normally be called long range planning might be a little more frequent. But plans like Parks Master Plan, TSPs, definitely housing needs analysis, economic opportunity analysis, and comprehensive plan may need to be updated more regularly or potentially amended at the very least. I think, you know, in terms of how the state regulates comp plan updates, it's actually not as cut and dry as you would think, and there's some flexibility there, especially for smaller communities like Boardman. So I would worry less about sort of the mandate of the state, at least in terms of the length that, or like the frequency that you need to update. But I would say a rule of thumb is like every 10 years, especially for communities that are experiencing some change, to update comprehensive plans. So I think definitely Boardman is overdue. I think we could all agree that that is true. So I'm glad that's happening. And I think while it is probably, you know, well, Carla's very much looking forward to her retirement as a result of so much work. I do think that it's good that Boardman is doing many other kind of a lot of planning efforts concurrently. So there's a lot of coordination happening between all of these different planning efforts that focus on different things: housing, the economy, transportation, parks. It is a monumental, truly like monumental effort to try to do all of this at once. Even much larger jurisdictions don't often, you know, it's more staggered. And there's pros and cons, but I think, again, because of the rate that Boardman is growing, both economically and in terms of residents and housing need, it's timely that this is all happening now, and it may need to happen again because of the growth rate that's anticipated. And just on the note of the plan being relatively old, the comp plan, you know, there is more of a trend towards comp plans that are, you know, 10, 20, 30 years old, tended to be a lot longer and more technical. And the more recent trend is to try to make comprehensive plans more digestible, more simple, more consolidated, because we've seen a lot of those older plans kind of sit on the shelf, and the goal is for it to be usable both for the community, but even also for staff. Sometimes these documents are really too much to sift through. And so simplification, I think, is a good thing. And that is what we're hoping for. And that's why we're kind of organizing our chapters into these simple 4 categories. We're trying to avoid over complication of these topics and focus on what's really important and what the city will use the most.
So would you say the next comprehensive plan will be in 10 years versus 20 years? And the reason I say that is because Boardman is growing
So fast.
so fast that I'm afraid that if you don't have some kind of language that says these are our trigger points, or you have to go through another comprehensive plan, you're going to have people that are going to say, well, we don't need one. The comprehensive plan says 20 years and this is year 7. Why are you talking about doing another comprehensive plan by year 10? Does that make sense?
Right. So in a lot of the older plans, there is this list of triggers that would require you to contemplate looking at your comprehensive plan. And it may be in Boardman's too. I'd have to go look and see. But the list is about 6 or 7 items. It says a change in statute, a change in rule, a change in case law, a mistake was made, and there's 2 or 3 others that kind of get into this generic list. It's like, well, now statute doesn't change every other year, it changes every year. I mean, so you could almost say that there are driving forces on an annual basis that would require you to look at your comp plan. I think more so you should be looking at your development code in that annual kind of what did they change in the legislature, what's going on as case law happened. We had an interesting conversation this morning also about some changes in land division requirements and how between state building codes and some case law, it's like, well, I don't know how we require them to do a replat. You know, they've got the state and various actors have given them kind of the get out of jail free card, and they don't have to do this. Well, if they don't have to do that, how do we protect the development? And so it's those kinds of things that you talk through and you think about how you're gonna. Not all of that would require a change in comprehensive plan. But what's interesting is you look at like some of our current housing policies, they're not bad. But the housing strategies report that the county did, that was all five cities in the county back in 1819, Boardman didn't adopt those updated policy statements. So we're still operating from housing policies that are, you know, last century, not just last decade. So it's when things start changing really fast, being able to be nimble and update those policy statements that are in your comprehensive plan, so that as you're amending your regulatory documents, your development code or zoning ordinance, it then is consistent between your policy statements and what your regulation says. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how you create the right triggers, but I think that's an important component. Yeah.
So do the triggers just say you should do it, or do they then force the city to do it? They're just a suggestion.
At this point in time, they are just a suggestion. Okay. Back in the day when they were, you know, when the planning program was new in Oregon, they really did try to deploy periodic review so that there was regular updates happening. It just became, with 241 cities and 36 counties, that's 270 some odd jurisdictions that you're trying to figure out how to maintain a comprehensive plan and develop. And Sachi's right. They used to be, I mean, there used to be a comp plan with a technical report. The comp plan might have been only 40 or 50 pages, but the technical report was often another 150 to 400 pages. And so it became overwhelming to try to manage that. I think communities have over time kind of dropped that whole technical report component. And yes, we adopt documents that provide guidance, but we're attaching them more as a known appendix or a known input rather than physically a part of the comprehensive plan. So we're trying to make that comprehensive plan more nimble and able to react within it, if that makes sense.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've gotten much into scenario planning, but on this topic that we're kind of circling around, which is the fact that Boardman is likely to see a lot of change in the near to midterm future, and it's hard to predict exactly how much growth you're going to see, exactly what sectors that's going to be in, you know, in like economically, what that's going to look like in terms of residential growth, and there's so many other unknowns, even like outside of the conversation about growth. There's also a bunch of other unknowns that we might not be able to predict, that could happen. You know, we had 10 years ago, a little over 10 years, no, not even 10 years ago, seems like almost at this point, has it been 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we were 2019, we were sitting in rooms making plans without realizing that we were going to have a pandemic in a year, and that was going to kind of, you know, potentially fundamentally shift where and how people work and what brick and mortar retail looks like and all these different things. And so inevitably there are these unknown things in the future that we can't predict, but that will likely have big impacts. And that's what one of the challenges of long range planning is, to be able to make good policies that will be durable and like last, you know, that won't be expired in a year or two because something happens that we didn't predict and we didn't have good policies to address. So we use this tool called scenario planning, which basically helps us to kind of imagine a lot of potential future, what we call drivers of change, or things that are unknown but could have really big impacts, and create policies that are going to be effective in a whole range of different potential future outcomes. So we don't set policies for only one future, because we can't assume only one future will happen. There could be a lot of different futures and we don't know which one. So we want to assume a lot of futures. We want to plan for uncertainty. And we want to have policy that is the most effective against a lot of uncertainty. And so that's why we use scenario planning, which we are planning on doing in this process. And that involves some kind of community engagement and thought experiment stuff, but it also involves actual modeling to look at what different growth patterns could look like in Boardman, and what different land use and zoning might look like, and how that might be good or bad in a variety of different futures. That phase of work is coming soon. It will likely happen end of summer and fall. But it's one way that we can make sure that, well, we may need to update the comp plan, and we may have triggers that tell us when we need to do that, even in the nearer future than we might, anticipate or expect, maybe 10 years or earlier from now that we update it. Still, even between that time, we want the policies that we put in place in the comp plan to be as sort of durable or resilient, whatever you want to call it, to a whole variety of different potential things that could happen. So that's something we've built into the process, and that I think will help address some of the uncertainty that is likely to be in Boardman's future and the world's future.
Yeah, my concern, I think right now in the planning environment in Oregon, and it's not just here, because this housing shortage that we're experiencing is not just here. I mean, it's across the state and it's across a lot of places. I think there's just been this pent up demand that's happened for a long time. Young people have just stayed at home. They continue to live in mom and dad's basement or whatever the case may be. And I think we're finally kind of hitting that I don't know, that melting point maybe, where people are trying to figure out, but housing is so expensive, it's hard to find something that's affordable. That's what some of the findings for this have said, and we hear that regularly. We have a gentleman that lives in town who's like for 4 years now has been provided us a housing report every year at the city council that kind of overviews what, the incredibly high rents here in Boardman. My concern is that there's been so much focus on housing, and there continues to be so much focus on housing, that there's been, particularly at the state level, there's really been no look at the economic sectors. And so if we're not, I guess I've seen this a couple of times happen in the planning world, we get really focused on fixing this issue. And then as we're fixing that, we realize we didn't pay any attention to the other stuff. And now we're dealing with a crisis in another sector. And so with what's happening here in Boardman, interestingly enough, what is happening in Boardman is we're seeing those growth factors happen in both sectors. So I'm not too concerned, because we're seeing economic opportunity happen at the same time. And we recently had the announcement by Good Shepherd about the medical facility project that they're talking about in Boardman. We've got, I can't share a lot, but let's just say we've got a lot of opportunity that in Boardman. They're looking at different properties. We have a potential restaurant. We've got a couple of potential fast food places. Burger King's been announced. We have a new hotel.
Is it, so statewide and region-wide, the cost of housing is high. It's not just Boardman.
It's not just Boardman.
You're right. And then seems like the wages, the cost of housing went, and wages went. So I feel like that's the issue. And it's not just Boardman.
No.
People say it's, well, in Boardman, you guys don't know this, but my son from Portland, I said, yeah, it's over $1,200 to rent a studio apartment in Boardman.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people just don't appreciate that level of conversation of, it's not just Boardman.
Right. No, it's not just Boardman. This is a regional issue.
It's everywhere.
I think it's everywhere.
in
And
my opinion.
and we do have developers who are trying to figure out how to address that, both in the rental market
Mhm.
and in the
Mhm.
housing.
Well, and then
housing
just the
market.
shortage of things.
Absolutely, the shortage is driving it more than it. And what's interesting is so that housing strategies report that happened in the county back in 1819, I don't remember what it all said, and even then, I was really focused on the county stuff, and now more recently I've looked at, yeah, it was in 18 and 19.
Not 1819, but 2018.
2018, 2019.
But dang, we missed something this
Yeah,
meeting.
back in 1819.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I was just a child then. So. One of the things for Boardman, I don't remember the exact number, but it said, it identified the 20-year land supply for multifamily, basically the Portview apartments and the Tidewater community living was, I don't know, by the time they started building community living, we had already exceeded the number of multifamily units, and yet they're all full and there's still a demand.
Yeah.
So clearly the projections that were happening in 18 and 19 of 2000 weren't adequate to where we were already at that point in time, but what we really have fully experienced over the past probably 5 years.
And I feel like that's a result of some people that have lived here for their whole lives. It's like, yeah, that's never gonna happen in Boardman, and not paying attention to the information and plan cause I can remember that day when they broke ground for Portview. And like, I can't believe they're gonna do it, they're mumbling under their breath, all these people that are celebrating it. There's no way these will ever fill up, there's no way, blah, 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 and then they just kept building and building and building, and then they built the other ones, and they're like, nobody's gonna live in those. When I, first lived at Maple Crest, it was this much money, and they're all full.
Yeah.
And when one closes, like the one on the corner of Columbia that's closing for refurbishing,
Renovation.
those people were left high and dry trying to find someplace. So I worry that the 10-year trigger, how does it happen in cities where they ignore that? Is it there's lack of a planner, or the intent of this council and the management? They're like, no, we're not doing that. That's a waste of our time.
I think it's a lot of things, Kathy. I don't think you can attribute any one reason or cause.
So having a trigger would maybe help.
Having a trigger, having a hard, fast, you will do this, but my response to that also is,
yeah,
it's oftentimes in most communities, they struggle just to manage current planning, let alone address long-range planning issues.
Oh, I feel you.
I mean, until I came on board 3 years ago, Barry was the planner.
Yes.
And there was no real support. And what I have to say is that when I came on board, there's been a real acknowledgement, hence there's 3 of us now.
Right.
And my focus is almost entirely on what we're doing with long range planning. I'm doing more of the community development component of it rather than the planning part, but Steph's busy. She's doing Gillum County and local.
You guys are all
planning.
busy.
Areli is busy with just, houses and the simple stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some of it too is, even if you have capacity to address your current planning, that doesn't mean you have capacity to address your long range planning.
Yeah.
So I think a trigger is a valuable tool. There has to be some flexibility in how you use that trigger to do that update, because sometimes you might look at it and go, it kind of, what this happened and we haven't seen the growth in this sector, or maybe you target it to reevaluate your housing needs, and what you find is what you really need to do is evaluate your employment land needs. So just because you have a trigger, what you might find is that the need is different than what you identified as the needed update.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Part of the time.
No, these are great questions. And definitely staff capacity is something that a lot of the jurisdictions we work deal with all the time. So point well taken there, Carla. And the goal for these long range plans is to make the policies we have as effective as they can be for as long as they can be. And so when we're looking at the policies and the land use and zoning code changes we want to make, we're going to try to look at maybe low, medium, and high growth rates and have some flexibility to make policies that could match, depending on what ends up happening in the future. So we can have kind of staggered, if we have a lower growth rate, here's what we would like to see. If we have a medium growth rate, here's what we think we should do. And if we have that really extreme growth rate, here's where we think we want to go. So I think we can have some options there to give us a spectrum, because it's so unknown right now and it could be so high. We don't want to under anticipate, but we also don't want to assume the absolute most and then it's not that, and we'll have to dial it back. So we can talk more about all of this when we get into the scenario planning in the fall. I think this will be a really deep mine to deep ore to mine. I don't know. You get what I mean. Lots here to talk about. But I want to keep us moving. So Angie, I'm gonna pass it back over to you. I think what's our next agenda item?
Yeah. Well, a break, but does anyone need a break, or should we move on?
No, I
Okay.
think we're good. We've got a really available restroom, and if anybody needs anything else, just let me know. So
Yeah,
You're gonna
feel free to make yourself comfortable.
you're gonna zoom in? Okay. We'll take like 30, we're gonna take 30 seconds to let Mike get to his car and zoom in.
Well, in that 30 seconds, we're gonna have water bottle.
Okay, in that 30 seconds, we've got three people who walked out of the room, but just go ahead and keep moving. We'll begin.
Okay. So our next agenda item is key takeaways from the community listening sessions. So as Sachi mentioned earlier, important part of this process are the engagement activities and the input we gather from community members. So this community listening session was our first activity for this process and for phase 1. And we hold this activity on May 3rd at the Sage Center. We had 14 attendants. And some demographics here of the attendance. So 36% participants are over 65 years old, and 27% participants are between 25 and 34 years old. Most of participants are female, 73% white, 27% Hispanic or Latino, and 90% of participants are homeowners. So the format of this activity was a workshop format, and we used the serious play methodology, and you can see in these images. So serious play methodology is basically using materials like you can see here, a board, any type of the purpose is to make it fun, but also to so participants who probably don't feel comfortable providing input verbally can create a model and share their comments on their ideas, making something creative. So each table had a set of materials, and participants were able to draw or to create something related to nature, to housing, and that was also a good opportunity to talk about all these topics. So Um, in the key takeaways. We followed the 4 themes from our existing conditions research, people, development, services, and nature. And we had conversations around these 4 themes. And this is what we heard from community members. So for the people, basically what we heard is that there is a need to involve more the Hispanic Latino community in city planning processes or just in general in decision-making processes. And there's a need to support leadership development and improving outreach to this specific population. And for development, we talked about 4 specific areas. So for housing, participants highlighted the need for different types of housing other than single family homes, and also housing options that are affordable for first time and younger buyers. For people, also participants said that it's important also to invest in STEM, special education, leadership programs for youth, which is related to development of workforce and building professional capacity, local professional capacity, specifically for medical, mental health, and support services. And in terms of economy, local economy, participants highlighted the need to attract new businesses and support entrepreneurship. For services, again, participants highlighted the need for 24/7 urgent care, mental health support, child care. Some community members mentioned that they have to drive to Portland to get mental health services. So this is something really important in the community. And there's also a desire for community amenities and recreation spaces like libraries, accessible playgrounds, more entertainment options. Of course, the participants mentioned the need for more stores, more retail, restaurants that are specifically, some participants mentioned the need for restaurants and grocery stores or stores that are open evenings and weekends, and addressing specifically people who work non-traditional hours. And yeah, and some participants also mentioned highlighted the desire for rental equipment for the outdoor fun, and also for alternative medicine options. Finally, for the nature theme, people talked a lot about parks and natural spaces, the marina and parks being the favorite spots for connecting with nature in Boardman. And also there is interest in connecting public spaces with other city areas. And in the need, they highlighted the need for improvements in landscaping and lighting. And we briefly touched on the theme of emergency preparedness, and some community members mentioned the need for emergency preparedness plans in Burma, because people basically don't know what to do in case of an emergency. So these are the key takeaways from this activity we had. So again, any questions on this feedback, any surprises, anything unexpected, and also there's again, if you wanna talk about that, if not, you can feel free to scan this QR code and submit your comments on this.
I missed the first part. Was this information from the survey or from that one meeting?
This is from the May 3rd community meeting.
The
that we
14
had.
people. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so again, just in that whole people development services,
Mhm.
I will tell you that the outcome of this conversation, I thought was very consistent with the community survey that we did for the strategic planning.
Yeah, I feel like it is too.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing.
Across the board, the same answers.
We're hearing the same, I mean, the desire for more restaurants, better healthcare opportunities, more diverse housing opportunities. I mean, I'm not hearing anything that I haven't been hearing.
Yeah.
And it's all very consistent, I think,
Yeah, I think so
all
too.
of our activities. I mean, again, on the when we hear things on the parks, where it's focused on parks, but it's still the same kind of information. When we have the PAC meetings for the EOA, it's focused on employment lands, but it's kind of the same. We're really consistent here in Boardman.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Oops. Yeah, and we definitely considered and are looking at, and we'll talk about this when we get into the vision statement that we've drafted up in just a second, but we are definitely have on our radar what you all call the strategic plan, which was that survey, that large citywide survey that happened last year and that council adopted. And then we want to make sure that what we are putting forward in this plan aligns with that. And that, if we are identifying anything that contradicts that we talk about it and kind of work through it. But so far, like you're saying, we really are seeing a lot of alignment with what we heard in that previous survey, and even what we've heard through some of the other engagement work that's happened on other plans like the Parks Master Plan. So yeah, it seems like the same kind of few themes are on people's minds. But we're definitely wanting to hear from you all, and if you all are familiar with that strategic plan work that was done last year, feel free to weigh in if you feel like there are things that came out in that process that are kind of like missing here, or that we need to bring in a little more. So Angie, should we move on to the vision discussion?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. Yep. You got in, Kathy?
Oh,
Or
I'm
move
good.
on? Okay. Okay.
Okay. So okay, our next agenda item is the vision statement, draft vision statement. So in this community listening session, we had an activity in which we talked about memories from our childhood. And participants, we had some prompt questions, and we were asking people things like, what was your favorite place when you were growing up? Why did you like it? What was in there? And so the intention of this conversation around memories was to draw values to guide this draft vision statement. So from that conversation with participants, we came up with these 5 values, or values from community members, which are community and belonging, and a lot of emphasis on neighborhood ties, kids and adults sharing public space, sense of place, which is with relates and aligns with one of the goals of the strategic plan, which is keeping this small town feeling in Boardman. And the second is value is safety and freedom to play. So safety, safe streets, safe parks, and environments that support exploration and freedom. And then connection to nature, more, I mean, really, Boardman has this great resource, the river. So people want to continue that connection to nature through outdoor recreation, nature-based experiences. Someone mentioned some salmon fishing, this type of activities to continue this connection with nature. The third value is access to resources, and which go from libraries, other public amenities to services. A lot of as we just were talking about, there's a lot of need of services in Boardman, childcare, health services, etc. And finally, something that the Boardman community real values is family-friendly environment, so welcoming spaces for family and families, and recreational areas to support fun, safety, togetherness. So these are the 5 values that we identified in these conversations in the community listening session. And okay, so what's the vision statement? And so something that we want to emphasize is that we are creating a vision statement specifically for the comprehensive plan. And this is a bit different from the vision and the process for the strategic plan. And I mean, we are trying to align this vision to strategic goals, and so everything is there's it's unified. But this vision statement specifically for this comprehensive plan, and so it's basically to give everyone a clear idea of where the town is headed, and what kind of place Boardman want to be. So that's the purpose of this statement. And so we came up with 2 versions, based on the input from community members. And I'm going to read this one, the first one. So, okay, sorry. No. Okay, there we go. Okay, the first one is Boardman's future is grounded in what has always made it special: strong community ties, access to nature, and a safe place to grow up. Looking ahead 20 years, we envision a town where families thrive, kids can play freely, and neighbors feel connected to each other and the land. This plan will guide Boardman's growth with a focus on walkable neighborhoods and meaningful access to services, learning, and local heritage. The Boardman community will honor its roots while creating new opportunities, a place where everyone across generations can belong and build a life. The second option, it's a tiny bit shorter, and it reads, Boardman is a place where community, nature, and opportunity come together. Looking ahead, we envision a town where families and kids feel supported and neighbors stay connected to each other and the land. This plan charts a path for thoughtful growth, walkable neighborhoods, welcoming public spaces, and access to education, parks, and culture. We also aim to expand job opportunities, enabling residents to live and work in Boardman, and building careers close to home. So let's take a couple minutes to reflect on this. And Sachi, can you pull up the Word document? We have both statements there,
Sure.
please.
Can everyone see my screen?
Make it a little bigger, like, yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Can you see
Yeah.
both of them still?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, let's take a couple minutes to reflect on this, and then we can continue with our first activity for.
So I know vision 1 is longer, but I like the last part of it better than vision 2, where it says the Boardman community will honor its roots while creating new opportunities, a place where everyone across generations can belong and build a life. I think that version 2, in my opinion, seems to focus stronger on young people because it says they can build a career, they can have their families and kids, where we also need to remember the senior generation that lives here.
Right. So.
Yes. And in the second one, I like the middle sentence in the second one, where it starts off with this plan charts a path for thoughtful. I think that's a really succinct way to say that part of it. Yeah, I like that.
I do think that it is important to identify the job opportunities. Because I think Boardman has kind of centers itself around being a career location. So I don't know.
So include that with the top one?
Yeah, or I maybe not exactly like that, but maybe there's a way to keep the opportunities in there.
Uh-huh.
I think there's a lot of people who are really proud of the fact that Boardman is a place to work as well.
And that they built their career. They started off maybe
Yeah.
as a employee at Portomoro, and now they're an electrician
Yeah.
because of their job in Boardman.
Yeah.
So what can you maybe clarify that a little bit more? So you're saying that focus more on continuing economic opportunities and growth for the local community?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I agree with what Kathy says. There's a aging population that I think sometimes gets forgotten here as we advance, and we want to acknowledge that we want to keep people here to age in place. But we also don't want to exclude the fact that there are new opportunities.
I also think that in the last 20 years, that my time at the county, before landing here eventually in Boardman, there has been a lot of effort that has been put in place around workforce opportunities, specifically to help keep our youngest generation here.
Yeah.
So we really saw that get deployed when Amazon first came to town, because their first endeavor, they actually transferred, they did a lot of import of current employees and even potential employees from outside of the community. And when those people moved to Boardman, they're like, this ain't Seattle. And they didn't last very long because they came from a tech environment to rural Oregon, and it was the biggest disconnect they could have experienced. And so the approach that Amazon then took, and working with the Portomoro and Blue Mountain Community College, was to create educational programs to help high school and young adults learn how to work in data centers. And they've had a much better retention
Mhm.
rate since they've done that. So. And I think other companies have tried to do similar things. I think our food processing industry kind of had a key on that for a long time. And I think in the food processing industry, you actually see a lot of multi-generational employment. Lamb Weston, I work here, my dad worked here and my grandma worked here. I mean, whatever that multi-generational link might be, I think food processing figured that out a long time ago from that perspective. So those job opportunity connections, I think, are important. And just because you start at Lamb Weston doesn't mean you stay at Lamb Weston, but you may stay in food processing, or you may go from the processing to the egg side. But the experiences you have in one place or the other can help you move from this job to the next job.
Yeah.
I've said way too much. Sorry.
And I do think you've captured that. I think we've captured the honor the roots while creating new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the other part that I do like about the second one that kind of ties in what Carla just said is that envisioning a town where families and kids feel supported and neighbors stay connected to each other in the land.
I like that sentence too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because then that kind of ties in that support of, kind of growing the.
Mm-hmm.
Throw them both into a word blender and then just see what we.
Yeah, we don't have to pick one or the other. I think, like we can cherry pick we can have a Frankenstein version of the two. So we like
Right.
from this sentence that I have highlighted right here, we like the focus on supporting families, and kind of supporting throughout the life span, or supporting all generations of the family, maybe is a good way to put that.
In the first one, I think the kids can play freely. That's a nice phrase, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a takeaway that we could take out. And
We want families to thrive.
yeah, I like it where it's down below where it says family and kids feel supported. I love that.
So I have a question. Why in the first paragraph do you say looking ahead 20 years, and the second one you say looking ahead?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Yeah, I think actually that's a good point, that I don't think we should be specific about a time horizon for a lot of reasons, some of which we just touched on earlier.
Right, trigger.
Yeah.
I think we're just simply looking ahead. I would agree. I don't wanna. I mean, this plan there might be components
But
of
you
this
can
plan.
say looking to the future.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Having a 20-year phrase in there really sets you up for.
It does, for
It
not
coming
doing
back
this
to
again
bite
for
you in the
20
butt.
years,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
Someone
it
to
says
throw it in
20
your
years,
face.
we don't have to do this
Yeah.
till 2045.
Right. Yeah.
Now that we're fixing a 20-year-old, updating a 20-year-old plan.
Yeah, yeah.
It talks about being walkable neighborhoods, but I don't see in either of those anything that it says about bike friendly.
True.
So
True.
maybe, not, instead of walkable, you could use a word that incorporates walkable and bike together. Like,
Pedestrian friendly.
I like that idea.
That's still walking.
That's bike as well. Pedestrian friendly.
Sometimes in planning, we use the word active transportation, which implies, biking, walking, skateboarding.
It's over my head when you say active transportation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I was kind of saying that with hesitation, but I'm just kind of
Mhm.
throwing out if there's another term that can encompass all of those.
But if you think about it, we can't name every single detail that we want.
No,
And I don't think we should. So,
I would take walkable out and say
accessible,
accessible is the word, I think, and I know that doesn't sound too.
but
Warm
when I
and
think
fuzzy, but-
accessible, I think ADA accessible.
This is
Mhm.
what, dictionary.com says that a pedestrian is going or performed on foot, walking.
Walking.
Right.
What
Yeah,
about accessible pedestrian friendly neighborhoods
Or what
instead of
about
walkable?
safe,
I don't know how you would incorporate them both.
safe for human travel? No, that's not, you're right.
I don't.
I mean, because we don't say all the things that people can do, like you said, we're not gonna, we don't know in 10 years if people are gonna be using something in addition to bikes and walking, be like, yeah, that's not included.
One of our coworkers rode his e-bike today.
My husband, there's a lot of people in town with e-bikes,
Yeah.
just to, yeah.
Maybe just accessible. I mean, I feel like we use the term accessible for,
So many things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's kind of,
pedestrian mobility.
oh, look at that
Did you hear me?
mobility.
yeah,
Maybe mobility.
that's good, Mike, mobility.
that's kind of that.
Pedestrian friendly mobility?
That would even include.
Safe
wheelchairs.
mobility options.
Oh, I like that, Ally. Safe mobility options for all. I like that. You don't like that?
Okay.
Okay.
No. Okay.
We had a yes and we had a no. Kathy knocked me out here.
Do we not like the word mobility? Does that seem to,
I like
It's okay. I just think
It's-
it really sounds like you're just saying ADA.
for mobility or accessibility? I think we thought
Mobility.
accessibility was too
The
ADA, no?
mobility really sounds like that.
Like ADA, okay. Well, what if we pair it with pedestrian friendly though? Pedestrian friendly mobility options. This plan will guide Boardman's growth with a focus on pedestrian friendly mobility options in
Oh, there's way too many words in that.
too much, yeah. Well,
I mean, you could say walkable and cyclable, but that's weird too.
about just pedestrian friendly neighborhoods, going back to that. Because pedestrians use bikes, right? I mean, pedestrian does imply walkable. Do we feel like this doesn't
Bicycle separate.
Okay,
sorry, you
so-
said that we should say something about bicycles separately?
So we're playing around with walkable neighborhoods in both the first one and the second one.
Mm-hmm.
If we went to the second one,
What if you said bike-friendly, walkable neighborhoods?
Yeah, that's what I'm finding online is what everybody's.
there we
Okay.
go, walkable and biking friendly neighborhoods, or just walkable and bike friendly neighborhoods, bike friendly.
Okay.
Bike / walkable.
Walkable and bike friendly. Yeah, walkable and bike friendly.
Got it.
That puts a lot of pressure on the city and on the planning.
Yeah, it does.
To pay more attention to it because this town isn't particularly bike friendly.
It is not.
Not at all.
It is
I
not.
agree.
It is not.
But they've got plans with the pathway when they redo the Main Street out here.
Yeah, no, there's,
It's not walker friendly either, 50% of it.
no,
Or
we,
more.
what I will say is that in the time that I've been here, which is a little over 3 years now. And I will tell you the work that we've done on the Parks Master Plan has been really eye-opening for me. As well as the work that we've been doing on the TSP around just how not walkable, not bikeable, not connected this community is. And some of that is the built environment, some of that is that previous city leaders, and I'll say it, were a little bit asleep at the wheel. You know, they weren't thinking beyond.
Were they asleep at the wheel or were they against it?
I
mean, it's not, I shouldn't say that. We're not here to judge.
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the
Asleep at the
doubt.
wheel.
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, Kathy.
Yes.
I think that, I think that there was just a long time that the people, the the city leaders in Boardman just thought Boardman was this little town and it was just gonna stay a little town. And when it's just a little town,
It's naturally bike friendly.
it's naturally bike friendly and you don't have to make sure that you're protecting that. Well, we now have almost 6,000 people in this town. And there's 8,000 plus vehicle trips on Main Street every day. And that creates an environment that is not walkable or bike friendly. I mean, it's just, we've got to figure out how to, and again, the work that we've been doing, for me, I have learned so much and have become so aware of that. I mean, none of our parks are ADA accessible, none of them. ODOT replaced the curb ramps at the interchange, but we have a lot of neighborhoods that aren't ADA accessible relative to the streets that we have and the curbs that we have. And again, we could have been chipping away at this over time. We certainly, our new stuff, we're doing what we can with the new stuff, but we got to go back and fix some of the old stuff. And I think this just really points that out. I just read this morning this weekend on the TSP side, the development code memorandum that we got relative to updates to our development code. And it does talk about the fact we have some generic statements in our development code around bikes and pedestrians. But that it's just it's there, but it's not very robust. And so those are the suggestions that they're making. So there's going to be a lot of change. I mean, and then how we implement it is going to be the next important.
So like on Mount Adams, you'll walk, there's sidewalk, and then there's no sidewalk, and then there's sidewalk. So will something like this address that? No.
Not necessarily.
They'll address future building that they need to put sidewalks all the way.
Right. So, there was a lot.
So in the old parts, the older streets, and Mount Adams isn't that old, the walkability maybe won't change, but new things as they come along.
Well, and even that infill, I think there was a real lax application of kind of the development requirements around infill for the past 20 plus years. So maybe there was sidewalk put in when those original houses went in, but one of the lots didn't get built, and when that lot got built, nobody said, oh, by the way, you also have to put sidewalk in.
Thanks.
So we end up with this house that's among all these others where there's sidewalk both ways, but Joe's house doesn't have a sidewalk in front of it.
Right.
So we're correcting that. Now, when there's infill in an established neighborhood, it's like, nope, you gotta put the sidewalk in. We need to have that. The city's also committed to doing sidewalk projects over the next several years. We're gonna focus initially on safe routes to school and filling those gaps where the sidewalks aren't.
Yeah, that's made a big difference in our neighborhood.
Yeah, it has. And so we're gonna continue to deploy that. But I think when we start talking about Boardman becoming walkable and bike friendly, it's as much the major corridors as it is the neighborhood streets Main Street is not, I wouldn't ride a bike on the street. I might on the walking path, but I wouldn't on the street. I'd be scared somebody would.
Well, even the walking path is dangerous. We saw someone get hit by a pickup on the walking path.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And if there's somebody already walking there, to be on a bike there doesn't mix well either.
No.
Right. Oh, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
It's not wide enough to accommodate all of those uses. So, yeah.
Also, I wonder if there's a way to encourage business owners to have bike racks.
So that's actually a requirement in our current code.
Oh.
And again, it's been there for a long time and has not been applied. In fact, I with this building, the addition to this building, the city is required to put 10 bike racks to accommodate 10 bikes. And I have bugged the building official several times, and I went in his office again this morning and said, by the way, you still haven't put your 10 bike racks in.
Helen, take a picture of my bike chained to the light post out here.
Well, yeah, you can put in bike racks, but you can't force people to use them evidently. We have bike racks at the library.
Yeah, we're getting off track here.
I'm gonna go get my water.
Yeah, I want to make sure we have 5 minutes left. I want to make sure we're focusing on any other changes, edits, anything that's missing in either of these two. But before we move on to any other comments, I just want to focus on what we're talking, Carla's comment just now, which was that it's important to have walkable and bike friendly neighborhoods, yes, but a lot of the neighborhoods are maybe more bike friendly than some of the larger streets and corridors. So do we want to, is that an important thing to emphasize in the vision, that some of the more, major roads need to be more walkable?
Well, maybe we take out neighborhoods and just find a way to say that this plan will guide Boardman's growth with a focus on walkable and with a focus on
Walkability.
with a focus on. Yeah, I don't know how to quite do that, but maybe it's less about neighborhoods and more about the whole community.
Yeah.
You might have to rework that whole sentence a little bit to get there, but
Right.
maybe that's what we need to do.
Quite friendly,
Mhm.
whole, community
Yeah,
instead of neighborhood. But you don't want to use the word community too many times either.
right. This plan will
With-
guide Boardman's growth with a focus on
Becoming a more walkable and bike friendly place
Yeah,
with meaningful access. Okay.
yes. Yes, I like that.
See what the thesaurus says.
Should you say areas? Because if you say place, it should be places.
I like place.
Place, like as in
I
a
think
place.
as a sense of place.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's how I thought about it too. This plan will guide Boardman's growth with a focus on walkable and bike friendly.
Areas.
I see what you're saying. It doesn't fit at the end of that.
Well, you just need to add so this plan will guide Boardman's growth with a focus on becoming a more walkable and
Yes.
bike-friendly place with meaningful access to services, learning, and local heritage.
I like that. You don't think that's a run-on sentence with the whole meaningful access at the end?
We could,
It's
It's long, it's okay.
but it's okay.
Thanks.
yeah, I think
It's
we could maybe cut, make this a second sentence, but I'll leave it for now. You may be right about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else that feels like it's really missing from either of these two? And I want to remind us and maybe draw our attention back to the strategic plan too, and making sure that we're aligning with that. And let me see if I can find, let's see if so are you seeing my screen here?
Yeah.
With the strategic plan, I'm highlighting in blue these 5 points that were important in the strategic plan survey, just so we can reacquaint ourselves with these. So considering these and anything else that's important to you all, because you all are representatives of your community here as well. Is there anything in this vision that we feel like is still really missing? And we don't necessarily have to wordsmith it. You can just throw out topics and Angie and I can work on incorporating the language in here.
Can you go back to the other screen?
Yeah.
One thing that popped out to me, and I don't know what the meaning of it was without digging further into it, but the word sustainable. I don't know if they intended for it to be just economically sustainable or.
The screen with the strategic plan phrases.
Oh, sorry. I thought you wanted to go out of that one. Okay, let me find it again. Oh, shoot, where'd it go? Now it's not showing up. That browser window is not showing up. I don't know why.
Well, I can look it up on my phone. Is it on the city website?
Share.
Oh, here. I think I just needed to be clicked on it. Hang on
Oh,
one second.
Sachi, I'm sharing it.
Oh, great. Thanks, Allie.
We've got your.
Allie,
we've
we
got
see
your
a beautiful
screen.
lake.
You see a pretty.
Oh, okay, you're not seeing the right one. Just kidding.
Okay.
Maybe Sachi will be faster. Here we go. Now can you see it?
Yeah, yes.
There it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That beautiful lake is where I was engaged, so it is a special place, but probably not as helpful for you all.
That means support modes.
I'm not
Sustainable
sure.
growth. That sounds weird.
That's your so.
Yeah, and we definitely don't need to use their language. I'm just reminding us of these general values.
So they want sustainable growth, not over the top growth that freaks us out. I think that's what they meant.
I think that's what they mean in that third bullet is that we know we're gonna continue to grow, but we want to do it in such a way that we don't
Control it.
right, that there's some.
Okay.
There's some mechanism around, just finding a way to figure out what makes Boardman Boardman and not lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like access to the library and having parks that we enjoy and, those types of things. I think we're there.
I think we are too.
Okay,
There's
well,
so much
great. That's
information I don't know we've covered. We captured some form of recreation. I mean, we don't want to neglect the fact that we have this great river next to us that a lot of people recreate.
Yep. And it was in there.
I think it was in there.
I stepped out for a second when I went to the restroom, so I'll make sure we didn't lose that.
You do that, you make, okay.
I'll
Then you
make a
lose-
note. Focus on recreation or emphasize
Park and
recreation.
culture. Yeah, we've got parks in there a couple times.
Maybe say natural resources, natural beauty.
I just
The
know,
mighty Columbia.
I was in a transportation meeting last week, or transit meeting, and they were talking about the logo. And apparently it came up a lot about the river, and creating.
The loop logo?
Yeah. So apparently the river is very important to a lot of folks. Not to say that it's not important to me, but I just don't hear it as much, I guess.
It is important, it's unique. I mean, that's a reason a lot of people move here, to be close to the river.
It's a big deal.
Yeah,
And
And
I think
to maybe add something about,
I think so too.
so maybe add something about natural resources, and connection to the river. Both,
Yeah.
both for as a natural resource and for beauty, for connection to nature.
Yeah.
Mhm. Got it.
We've given a good job.
River accessibility.
Yeah, river accessibility, river,
I don't think the city can always control river accessibility, so to put that in our vision statement would be tricky.
We
Well,
can just
yeah.
say connection to the river, like, and that can mean connection as in like, being reminded of it, or like a physical connection, which of course is
Sure.
much harder, right? Gotta
Yep.
get across those train tracks.
Yep.
Well, and it is a big economic driver too. So when you talk about the river,
Mhm.
aspects.
Yeah, that's a great point. Recreation, economy, aesthetics, like beauty, cultural connection.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Well, we're a little over time. Anything else you all want to add here before we wrap up?
I think we're over time because I talked too much and I was thinking 3 to 5 for some reason. So my apologies to everybody.
That is quite all right. That's quite all right. We're happy to stay and listen. But I want to make sure we get everyone out of here when we said we would. So I will offer, we're happy to let you all sit with this for a little while. These statements are in your packets that you got. And if you need another copy, just email Carla and she can pass it on to us, or she'll pass you on the slides again. If you'd like a Word or PDF version that you can comment on, we're happy to send that. So if you need a little more time with it, to add comments, do whatever wordsmithing and send it our way, feel free to do that over the next, let's say, week. So if folks could maybe get us comments by the end of this week, if you have any additional comments.
I can send
would be great.
a follow-up email out to the
Mhm.
PAC.
Thank you.
And what I will do is I'll just go in and I will just cut and paste the 2 as presented originally. And we'll see what comes back. That will get it to all of the PAC members.
Is it okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
One slide that shows the cost of housing in Boardman for my budget committee meeting Wednesday?
Sure.
Thank you. When they argue about why we need to raise wages. Every year when I say, do you know what the rent is in our, and tell them, they're like, no,
Actually, have you seen Stephen Fuss's housing report?
no, but he comes to the library every day. I'll ask him what.
He's done a great.
But I think your thing would have
It's
more
kind of
weight.
succinct. It's kind of
Well, it would
succinct.
have more weight than one individual,
Right.
but I'll ask for his too.
Yeah.
All right. So we will looking forward to the comments from other PAC members, and the final product will be a one draft vision statement that we will share with other community members in our next engagement activity, which is, we don't have a date yet, but we are thinking of probably end of August. We will keep you all posted on that. And for our next PAC meeting, our next PAC meeting is scheduled for September. But we don't have a date yet, but when the time comes, we will send a same doodle poll to find a date that works for everyone. But yeah, thank you all so much for your time. And this was a very productive meeting. And yeah, thank you.
So in the PowerPoint that came out to everybody, if you get to the near the end of it, it does have the project advisory committee schedule for 25 and then again for 26, kind of lays out what's coming. So you can go there and see that. Again, no dates specifically, just dates more generically. We're meeting 2 of 8. So
Did you get people to volunteer for that committee where they could get a stipend thing? Remember you handed those out at the first PAC meeting?
Angie, can you provide a short committee part update?
Yes, we have a couple participants, and yes, so
I tried to promote it to people. So,
Well, and feel free to continue. I mean, if
Okay.
somebody seems interested, feel free to figure out how to connect them to me or directly to Angie or to me, and I'll
Okay.
get them connected to
Okay.
Angie. So yes, we're still deploying that, so absolutely. And the August event, we're looking at tying it loosely to the, what do they call that event in August?
end of summer celebration.
The end of summer
I
celebration,
don't know if
yes.
that's the exact wording, but that's what you mean, the fireworks. and
Yes, the
the Public night out.
August 22nd.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. So doing some things that day, into that evening. So we'll be reaching out for, asking PAC members to participate in that scenario planning to some degree, and then encouraging friends, family, neighbors, enemies, friends.
It's well attended.
Yeah, that's what I understand. That event's usually well attended, so. If we can.
Yeah, we may, and we can talk more about this, Carla. I'd want to get your buy off, so no promises here, but we may want to have another PAC meeting before that visit in July, to maybe get to introduce them a little more to the scenario planning work, so that when we do come, they can be a little more kind of ambassadors to the work, and you all can join the event, and maybe even kind of help us think about the activity that we're going to do, and then we can give more background on, because I said a lot about scenario planning but then didn't really give you probably enough detail to fully understand, so we can talk more about what that is. I think sooner rather than later would be good.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll meet before September.
Yep. I like that idea.
Mm-hmm. But we'll see. It's summer, so I know everyone's out boogieing around on the river and doing other fun stuff on vacation. So we'll see if we can get everybody together. But
Yep.
yeah.
Sounds like a
Okay.
plan.
Well, thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Mike.